Hello, I'm Catherine, and welcome to the Cambridge Legal English podcast. You're going to hear me and my friend and colleague Rachel talk about a big variety of legal stories in these podcasts. And what we want to do is improve your vocabulary, your pronunciation, and probably your listening skills as well. If you've got any topics that are in the news that you'd like us to discuss, please let us know and we'll be happy to do it. Today's topic, how can I describe this without giving away the secret? Because there is a secret. We're going to talk about a viral product. It's caused trouble around the world in court because of copyright issues. If you can't guess what it is, watch the podcast, have a guess now and see if you're right, and we'll see you in the next one. Enjoy it. It's a vocabulary lesson today. How do you feel about learning or teaching lots of new words, Rachel?
I'll do my absolute best.
You see, legal vocabulary, I think what law students in particular should focus on is sometimes you just need some ordinary vocabulary that you might not know.
Yeah.
And that's because of commercial awareness. All law firms are looking for law graduates with commercial awareness.
Yeah.
And part of that is being able to talk about your client's business and knowing something about the market that your client operates in. So if you're going to be the lawyer for Liverpool Football Club, it's really hard to do that if you know nothing about football and everything about contract law. So today's podcast is about a viral product.
Okay.
That's causing all kinds of legal problems. But we need a few pieces of vocabulary for our listeners so that they get maximum benefit from this. So this is an intellectual property case, authentic goods. So we produce books, don't we, textbooks, that I drink a lot of tea and wake at 5 a.m. trying to write them. And we have the authentic goods,
Yes.
the real thing. However, when I go online and I look for one of my own books, I get lots of invitations to download PDFs that I don't get paid for.
Yeah.
And that's just life, isn't it? That's
Absolutely.
same with everything. So a lawyer, I think, would describe those as counterfeit goods. They infringe the intellectual property of the author, me.
Yeah.
You might say fake copies. Let's stop talking about books and talk about something more interesting to fake, like a Gucci handbag or an Yves Saint Laurent perfume.
Okay.
There are a lot of counterfeit copies of those things, and they are fake. How do you feel about the word pirated goods?
You know, that takes me, do you remember? It takes me back to early 2000s, putting in a DVD, and it had that wonderful advert, which every British person really knows. And it was all about like piracy and piracy of of goods and of, in that case, the film industry.
The film. It said, I remember now, it said you wouldn't steal £20 from someone, you wouldn't steal their watch, so why do you feel you can steal their copyright? By watching this pirated film.
Yes. What interests me about it is that 20 years later, you find out that the text that they used, the really iconic text, was completely pirated.
Of course it was, yes.
Amazing.
So that word pirated, it doesn't mean Johnny Depp. It means, which I think of immediately when I think word pirate. It's not that. It's a counterfeit copy, a fake copy.
Mhm.
Now, there's an even more informal word that we would use. So if I say, "Hi Rachel, here's my new Gucci handbag. I bought it in the market for £20," you would probably say it's a
Yeah.
knockoff. That's very
Yeah.
informal, isn't it?
Yeah.
How would you know something was a knockoff?
If it's a little bit too good to be true, so like it's really undervalued, or usually they spell something wrong, or they get the logo wrong, or the quality isn't there. There's like a very marked difference between the
So
real
instead of
quality.
Gucci, it
Cookie.
says Lucci or
Yeah.
Pucci or something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very, very close, but not quite.
Yeah.
So this is all useful vocabulary for today's viral goods because a lot of them are counterfeit,
Hmm.
fake, pirated knockoffs of the real thing.
Yeah.
And what's happened is these fake goods have flooded the international market. So I'm going to give you that job of describing what it means when fake goods flood markets.
They're everywhere. They're perhaps even more popular than the actual product.
Yeah, they are everywhere, and it's quite difficult to find the
Yeah.
authentic
Yeah.
goods. And what does it mean if the copyright holder, the person who created the authentic goods, tries to crack down? That's such a good phrasal verb,
Yeah.
to crack down on sales of these inauthentic goods.
So they try and stop them usually. It's like they try and like figure out where they're being manufactured
Yeah,
and stop
yeah.
operation, but that's
To
hard to
stop
do.
operations. When
Very
you
hard to
crack
do.
down, I think you try to stop it, but you use everything within your power. You really mean it. I'm going to stop this. And I haven't cracked down on the sale of my books
No.
because I'm just too lazy. I just think, oh, well, at least people are reading
Yeah.
them. Now, in the UK, we've got a government department called the Trading Standards Office.
Yeah.
Sounds so boring, but they're actually quite good. I would quite like to work for Trading Standards because they've got the power to seize and destroy knockoffs. So
Yeah.
when they seize inauthentic goods, pirated goods, how would you describe the meaning of seize?
They take. They
Like
usually yeah,
confiscate.
they take them away.
They've got the legal right to
Yeah.
go into the local market, which is where you often find these
Mm.
things, and say, "I'm from Trading Standards. It's not quite as cool as an NYPD
No.
badge, but I would quite like one." And you take everything from the market stall,
Yeah.
then you can destroy it.
Yeah.
I would quite like to do that. Just a big bonfire of all these
I feel like you
fake
would suit
goods.
that very well.
I would suit it,
You
yeah. When
would.
I stop teaching English to lawyers, I might try and get work with the trading standards office. Quite
Very
good at it.
different field.
So I'm going to give you some clues now about the viral product
Okay.
I'm talking about.
Okay.
And I'm warning you, Rachel, it's a product that I've heard you complaining about. So you don't even like the authentic thing,
Oh, okay.
but you don't like quite a lot of things. So
No, no,
you
I'm
don't.
notoriously not trendy, so
So I've got a few clues for you. Here's the first one.
okay.
The authentic goods were designed by a Chinese artist called Cassie Long.
Okay.
Doesn't help, does it?
No.
You need more. In 2019, the designer who then held copyright in his goods
Hmm.
licensed his IP rights, his intellectual property rights, to a Chinese company called Pop Mart.
Right.
More?
Maybe one more. I've got an idea.
Okay. This product went viral all over the world when one woman was photographed carrying this product. Her name was Lisa. She's in a K-pop band called Blackpink. And this item that we're talking about was attached to her handbag.
Oh, I know what this is. Is it those bloomin' Labubu dolls?
Yeah, it's Labubu. Even saying the word Labubu hurts me.
Oh! Ah!
Yeah. Now, Rachel is probably going to have a little rant now. And I just let her do that whenever she wants to, really.
Yeah.
But how do I describe a rant? I think it's an angry monologue.
Yeah.
Go, Rachel. Before we talk about any more law, I'm going to let you do your rant.
Thank you. It's much appreciated. I hate these things. I think they're so ugly. I think they're so pointless and so ugly and awful and just they're everywhere at the minute and they're so pointless. I don't know how we got from really beautiful dolls like, Barbie, who is the pinnacle of like very stylized beauty, to that. I hate them. I hate
Rant
them.
over?
Yes, rant over.
Rant over. Okay. Now that you've got that out, we're talking about Labubu
Yeah.
dolls created by Kassing Lung, a Chinese artist. Now, he did not assign his intellectual property rights to the company Pop Mart.
No.
He licensed them. That's quite clever because when you assign your intellectual property rights, transfer the ownership.
So he's still got ownership of them.
He's still got ownership, but he granted a license to Pop Mart to produce these Labubu dolls. We're saying dolls, they describe them as an ugly, cute elf.
They got one thing right about that.
Well,
They're
I'm going to give you,
extremely ugly.
you said rant over. You had your opportunity and now you have to stop. I'm going to tell you what's interesting about these dolls.
Okay.
Or these ugly, cute elves.
Mm.
They were worth $42 million in the USA alone in 2024. In 2020, the company went public. They were so popular. Now, when you go public in UK law, that would be moving from a private limited company to a public limited company, a PLC. And that means your shares trade on the stock market,
Okay.
which is, I think, the dream of every private limited
Yeah.
company to be able to do that. So these ugly little creatures, the company is now valued at $43 billion in 2025 after it floated on the stock exchange in 2020. Now, for comparison, you mentioned Barbie.
I did.
Barbie is the intellectual property of Mattel.
Yeah.
Now, Mattel is currently worth $6.4 billion. Pop Mart, $43 billion. So you're in a bit of a minority. I think
I really am. They're very trendy. They're very trendy.
they're viral, aren't they? You
Yeah,
can't
they've
turn on
gone
YouTube
everywhere.
now without seeing one. And part of this is where commercial awareness comes in. You might think as a lawyer you only need to know contract law. If you're a lawyer for Pop Mart, and I would quite like that job at the moment as well, that sounds like quite financially a good job to
Yeah.
have. They went viral partly because of a marketing ploy
Yeah.
called blind boxing.
Yeah.
Explain that to me.
So they are everywhere. is also a massive trend. You buy a box and you don't know what's in the box. You know that it could be, say, one of 10 different items, but you buy it based on the fact that you have no idea what could be in it, and you try and
So,
get the full set.
yeah, people are compelled to try and get a full
Yeah.
set. I remember when my own children were young, it was Pokemon cards.
Yes.
Half of my salary went on Pokemon cards because my children
Yeah.
wanted the full set. So you buy a Labubu
Yeah.
and you don't know which one is in the box.
No.
It might be one you already
Yeah.
have.
They
And
usually have like this marketing ploy of there being like common ones and then a very rare one that you have to keep buying things
clever,
to get. Yeah.
clever. They retail in the UK for about £17.
Yeah.
So if mothers and fathers are having to keep buying them at £17, that's very clever marketing.
Oh, it's very
Now,
clever.
I think in China, they've banned the sale of them to children for that reason.
Yeah.
But in the United States and the United Kingdom, the children are saying to their parents, I haven't got the full set, you
Yeah.
have to buy me another one. So you do need to know your country's law on that whole aspect of blind boxing and selling to children,
Yeah.
which I think we define as being under 17 years old.
Yeah.
So I think I'm right in saying is China has said no to that. So what about flooding the market with fakes? Well, this is something called the Lafufu. So the authentic is Labubu. I can't believe I've got 2 degrees and I'm having to say these ridiculous words. The authentic is Labubu. The knockoff is Lafufu.
Yeah.
And we asked our resident 9-year-old expert, Eva, how to tell the difference. And she immediately said it must have exactly 9 teeth.
Yeah.
That's one of the ways you tell the difference. So what authentic producers of goods do is try to make it really easy to differentiate between the real goods and the fake ones.
Yeah.
So that verb to differentiate is very, very important in any intellectual property law. And I believe we've got a short clip of a Labubu expert from YouTube telling us how to differentiate between the authentic goods and the knockoff.
Yes.
Let's listen to that.
In this video, I'm going to show you a real Labubu and a fake Lafufu so that you don't get laboozled the way that I did. Now, let's check out a real Labubu to start with. This one here, actually, let me compare the same colors. So this one here is a real authentic Labubu. I purchased this one from the Pop Mart store, and you can see from the stamping on its foot that this has the Pop Mart stamp. You can also see that its face is hard. If I squish it, nothing happens. The face doesn't dent in. It has 9 teeth. If you count them all, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It also has slightly rosy cheeks, but not too rosy, just slight. And it has nice long ears, just like a bunny. Its head rotates, but you do have to turn it using a little bit of force. It doesn't turn on its own. You can move their arms, but not the legs. That's a Labubu. The last thing I'll show you is that on the tag, it should say the monsters. Labubu. Now, sorry, Labubu. Let's look at a Lafufu. You can already see the difference right off the bat. But for one, the stamp is on the wrong foot. It's on the right foot instead of the left, and it's very hard to see. You can also rotate the feet on these Labubus all the way around, which is super weird, but you can. So you can have its feet be backwards. And then the head moves just without you doing much at all. It'll just spin right around. The cheeks are really bright. I'll hold them both up so you can see. You can see the Lafufu and the Labubu. Look how much shorter the ears are on the fake Labubu versus the real one. Fake, real. Fake, real. Labubu.
Well, there we are. Information that we didn't know that we needed, but now we do. Usually the retail price is a strong indication.
Yeah.
Ava told us she'd gone to a fairground with her mum not very long ago, and she saw a stall selling Labubus, but the price was £8.
Yeah.
And that's what you said earlier.
Yeah.
If it's too good to be true, it's not true.
Yeah.
That's not the real thing. And often trading standards, when they, Sonny for heaven's sake, when trading standards seize goods, it's often partly because of health and safety concerns. The authentic goods meet all health and safety standards, whereas knockoff goods often have parts that will come off that are dangerous if you give them to anyone vulnerable at all, but especially a child. So we describe that as shoddy goods.
Yeah.
That's a good word, isn't it? Shoddy.
Yes.
How are we going to explain shoddy goods?
Terrible quality.
Terrible quality, yeah.
For example, like, I know that things like Shein and fast fashion and that sort of thing, their clothing is very, very cheap because it's very, very shoddily made. And
Shoddily made, yeah, good phrase, yes.
And it doesn't last. Whereas if you go to Marks and Spencer's, which is a very popular shopping chain around here, and get like a similar outfit, say you were getting a shirt, it would be better quality because it's a more reputable seller.
Yes, Marks and Spencer are not shoddy.
No.
Whereas buying things from a market stall, you often get shoddy goods. So that's another way to differentiate. Let's get to the legal part of how Pop Mart can protect their intellectual property and stop the market from being flooded with counterfeit goods, knockoffs, pirated goods, however you want to describe them. The first thing they can do is start legal proceedings in court against people like the manufacturers of these fake goods and the people who are selling them online.
Okay.
So what would your grounds be for legal action here? Now that word grounds is really important. It's your accepted legal basis for taking legal action. So if I go to court and say, hey judge, I want to sue Rachel, the judge will say, on what grounds? In other words, what is your legal reason for this legal action? Now, we use the collocation infringement, not breach, when we're talking about intellectual property. So Pop Mart is going to court in a lot of different jurisdictions around the world to enforce their legal rights. And they're suing, and there's no preposition after sue. They are suing for infringement of copyright, infringement of trademark, infringement of trade word. Labubu, that's a trade word and you can protect it. And infringement of design, because part of your intellectual property right is the design of something. And it's basic things like these ugly little dolls, the design of their ears, the look of their face.
Yeah, they've got a very specific
They've got a very specific
They're
look.
very specific.
And you can protect that. That's protected by design. Unfortunately, though, believe it or not, Pop Mart didn't register their trademark until after this product had gone viral. So they are now retrospectively taking action. So to do things retrospectively means you're doing it a bit too late.
Yeah.
You're starting now and looking back instead of looking forward.
Yeah.
But they are being very fierce and very determined about these lawsuits. Now, if you imagine that you are the CEO of Pop Mart and I'm the judge, and you're saying the market here in the UK is flooded with counterfeit Labubus called Lafufu, and they look very similar. They're also in a box. What would you want me to do for you as the judge?
Cease operation of the counterfeit?
Cease operations, yeah.
Yeah.
So for that, you want me to grant you an injunction.
Yeah.
Now, an injunction is an expensive thing to get, but not if you're Pop Mart because you're worth 43 billion. In the UK, you have to apply to the High Court for an injunction, and it's a prohibitive order.
Yeah.
It's when a judge orders you to stop doing something. So that would be stop manufacturing fakes, stop selling fakes online. The expensive part is you have to get a separate injunction against every single person or entity
Right.
who is doing this behaviour.
Yeah, I can now see why it's expensive.
Yeah, you have to find them, you have to catch them, and then you have to get all of these separate injunctions. Now, once the court has issued an injunction, if you breach that injunction, so you carry on manufacturing fakes, it becomes a criminal offence.
Yeah.
And you're probably looking at prison because a High Court judge told you not to do something and you did it. I would never breach an injunction. I'd be terrified. Damages is the other remedy. So what you could ask for, let's say this invisible person we can't see has flooded the market in London with fake Labubus.
Yeah.
And they've done it on a big scale, you could demand to see how many they have sold. And you could apply to the court for a share of those profits.
All right.
Because they've financially benefited from your work, your design, your copyright. So it's only fair that they can't keep all of that money that they've made. You have to get a good proportion of that. And as well as that, just damages, financial compensation for all of this, and legal costs.
Yeah. I suppose as well, if they're flooding the market with non-authentic goods, they're making the authentic goods less marketable, less...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and lawyers need to know all of these things. It's not enough just to know the law.
Yeah.
You do have to look at Labubus and find out all the financial aspects of a case like this. The second thing that you can do is challenge patents and trademarks filed by others.
Okay.
So if Lafufu, the fake, tries to register a trademark in that name, you can challenge that and say, no,
that's mine.
That's mine.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
Mine.
So Pop Mart are also doing that. The trouble is there are different trademark officers around the world, And again, it becomes expensive because you've got to protect your trademark in lots of different markets. You could work with local trading standards. That's what they're called in the UK. You can report the fakes, and trading standards can then seize and destroy. I think when they destroy, they burn them, which must be very satisfying. And the fourth thing the original copyright holder can do is get people to constantly monitor the market. So Disney in particular are very good at this, the Disney Corporation. If someone on a website like Etsy produces goods like mugs or T-shirts or phone cases that infringes the copyright of Disney, Disney must have hundreds of people constantly monitoring and reporting. So that's the other thing that you can do is monitor the market. So just to end, something about Lafufus, the fakes.
Okay.
I watched a video online from the Wall Street Journal, so quite serious, and I read an article in the Guardian newspaper, which is a very reputable British newspaper.
Yeah.
And it said they're mostly made by stay-at-home grandmas in China.
Oh.
So these ladies who are at home looking after their grandchildren quite often are making lafufus.
I feel like that would be my nana. That would be my grandmother. Because I've told you before she knits, and she'd look for a job like that where it's just like it's very tactile. I think a lot of elderly women do that sort of thing.
See, I'm a grandma and I would rather go to the dentist than do any of these things. I only just want Netflix and a glass of wine and to take my dog for a walk. I'm not interested. But that's part of what we call the gig economy, where you've got people doing work kind of under the radar. So Lafufus are very much a gig economy product. Do you want to know how I can link Labubus with Chinese financial regulation law?
Come on then.
You don't really want to know, but I'm going to tell
have this wonderful habit of linking things that nobody else would have ever thought about, and it's brilliant. I find it genuinely very fascinating.
Ugly cute elf, Chinese financial regulation. Chinese financial regulation law.
It's impressive.
Chinese banks are under a great deal of pressure at the moment from the Chinese authorities because the tariffs from he who shall not be named are causing a few financial problems. I have every faith that China will recover as quickly as it's possible to recover because they're such a resilient, amazing economy. But the banks were luring customers in to say, save money with us, open accounts with us, and we will give you a free Labubu. And the Chinese authorities did not want the banks doing this. They don't want to encourage saving. They want to encourage spending. And they don't like the idea of free gifts being given to bank customers. I mean, in the USA, you can open a bank account and be given a rifle as a free gift. But China's not going down that road. So giving free gifts was non-compliant. You have to comply with financial regulation law. And most law firms have financial compliance lawyers. I think they're the best ones because my child was a financial compliance lawyer. So they're not boring at all. They're the best ones. So that's how you link the Labubu with Chinese financial regulation law. Don't do it. It's non-compliant. That's the end of my story for today.
Well, I'd say I had a wonderful time, but I genuinely hate these things.
You do hate them, but I wouldn't mind 43 million a
I
year.
wouldn't mind 43 million.
So, yeah, that's the story of the Labubu, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.
Bye.